Hello, everyone, and welcome back to PTV FC. It has been quite a while since we hopped on a podcast, but we are back from break, ready to talk all things football. We're going to stay away from the Premier League just for this episode. We're going to recap the World Cup final because we didn't get a chance to do that before we went on break. So, Graham, before I get into it, man, how are you doing?
I'm doing great, Louie. Just excited to be back here at school. I'm really excited to get the podcast going again. You know how much I enjoy doing this every single week. So getting back into it is going to be a lot of fun.
And I can see you're rocking a brand new jersey. It's a Chelsea jersey if you want to show everyone at home. Ooh, looking clean.
Oh yeah, I love this
So,
thing.
yeah, that's a nice one. But let's get right into it with the U.S. The U.S. ended up playing Netherlands. We were talking all that raw. I remember on the last episode before we signed off, and then at the end, U.S. ended up losing. Really unfortunate game. They ended up losing 3-1. Haji Wright grabbed one in the 76th minute, but it was too late as the Netherlands were already up 2-1, and then the Netherlands piled it on, scoring again. I mean, in my opinion, the U.S. was outclassed, outcoached, out everything basically in that game. What did you see?
Um, to be honest, at the beginning of the game, it just felt like we were doing really well, but then there were too many like clear chance opportunities on those cutback passes into the box. They weren't guarded well, and they capitalized on both their opportunities there in the box. So it's really unfortunate to see that we lost that game when we really did have a very good chance of winning it, and we didn't look completely outmatched, I think, against like a really good Netherlands team. So it's a positive to look forward to, the fact that we can still compete with these top class teams going into this World Cup and going into the future for this team, but just not being able to prevent them from getting easy opportunities like that is what really killed us in that game.
Yeah, I totally agree. I mean, I think that like you said, it's really useful for the U.S. that they were able to kind of compete. But I just think that the Netherlands really executed their game plan well because, like you had said, with those cutbacks, I kept watching them like, wow, the U.S. really just cannot defend a cutback coming in from the flank and then going low and hard into the box. So that's what made me say that we were outclassed and outcoached even because I think that comes with film study. I mean, other teams hadn't really done that against the U.S. and then the Netherlands were able to get up and do that. So it's definitely a step in the right direction. I was just a little bit disappointed with how the U.S. Ended up playing. I mean, the U.S. outshot the Netherlands both in shots in total and on target. Looking here at the stats, the U.S. had 17 shots, 8 on target, compared to the Netherlands 11 shots and 6 on target. But the Netherlands were able to convert. So at the end of the day, they ended up winning. Uh, so after that, very unfortunate scenes for the U.S. They were out of the 2022 World Cup. But looking forward, 2026. I want to say it's right around the corner. It's really not. It's 4 years from now. But I mean, eventually it's going to go by quickly. They're going to be like, wow, it's on us already. So we have to talk about that. I feel like all the U.S. players, maybe not all of them, but quite a few of the U.S. players will be much more experienced. They'll be closer or in their prime by then. And it's going to be at home. So the U.S. will have home field advantage for this next World Cup. What do you think very well could happen?
Well, this team is going to improve. They were very young coming into this tournament. We were the youngest team with the youngest captain in the tournament. And honestly, with it being here in soccer, which has been growing in the US, I've never seen this much support for the United States men's team in a tournament before. So seeing that the sport is growing here, knowing we have home field advantage when it comes to most of our games being in the United States, I really think this is a year that we can make a semifinal run or something like that. Now, winning it, that's going to be very difficult to do. It's very difficult for any team to win the World Cup, no matter how talented you are. But this year, I think could be like one of those miracle runs, like what Morocco did this year, how Morocco was the first team, African team to reach a semifinal. And I really do think that we can make the best run we've ever had in in a World Cup tournament because it's played here. The fans are going to come out and support. We all know that for the United States. It's going to be a really big event to have here for the sport in general. So I'm really excited to see it. And think about it, Louis. At that point, I will probably have graduated college and you'll be a few years removed. So it
Dude, I'm
is
gonna
still
have
a
a
little
job
bit.
by then.
I'm not hoping it comes that fast, but I can't wait to at the same time.
I also can't wait, but it's a little bit scary to think that I will literally have a full-time job and won't be here at Seton Hall doing PTV FC anymore. It's a little bit sad actually, but nonetheless, I am really excited for the World Cup to come back to America. And also something you talked about home field advantage because most of the games are in the U.S. I think something that could benefit the U.S. depending on how FIFA decides to do it is travel, right? If teams, I don't know how it's going to be done yet, but if teams have to travel from like New York to LA or like to Chicago, like European, when they play in Europe, right, they don't travel very much because the countries are much smaller than the US. And also in the World Cup, it's usually in one city. But in this case, it's not in one city. There's a million venues all over US, Canada, as well as Mexico. So I think traveling could aid the US as well because a lot of the players on the US team were in the MLS at one point and traveled quite a bit with those MLS teams. So I think that could be an underrated aspect of this World Cup that could help the U.S. and really benefit them going forward. But I'm like you said excited. I have all hope, very high hopes for this team. I really hope that they can make a dream run. You talked about Morocco. We're gonna get into them a little bit later, but first I feel like we have to touch on the coaching rumors that are surrounding the U.S. There's been a few coaches that have been thrown around. Zidane, your guy Jesse Marsh, who you've talked about on this podcast earlier. So, what are your thoughts on the rumors that are swirling around the U.S. head coaching job?
Well, I would love to see Zinedine Zidane coach the United States team. You know, he did it at Real Madrid. He's won Champions Leagues. He's one of the best midfielders to ever play the game. Very tactically minded, very, very good coach. Will he coach this team? No. Nah, not a chance. There's no shot he coaches this team. It's a miracle if he ever would decide to coach the United States men's team, just because I don't think that's the job he's looking for. I think he's looking for that France job. I think he really wants to coach the French national team. So I don't think he is going to coach the United States national team. But other like candidates like the Philadelphia Union's coach and Jesse Marsh. I don't think Jesse Marsh is looking for a united like a national team thing right now. Maybe maybe in the next 4 years, by the time this next World Cup comes, you don't know what can happen on the club level, so you don't know what he's going to be doing. He might be available to be selected to be our manager for the next World Cup. We don't really know what's going to happen, but I think the Philly Union manager who just won MLS Manager of the Year for a very good Philly Union team who he coached very well. And like my brother being on the staff of that team first part of the season was able to see a lot of that firsthand. And he said that he would want to see him be the next United States men's national team coach. So I'm curious of who they're gonna pick. I don't want anyone like I don't want to see them flop around with this decision. I think they need to consider like a manager who they know is really going to put in the work and really going to put in a good job here, someone who has had success in the past, and with hopefully without American bias toward it, like, oh, we need to pick an American guy to be our manager. If someone comes up who's qualified for this job, I think we should 100% take them. Like, if Zinedine Zidane really puts in an application, there should be no hesitation with taking him.
I totally agree. Pep Guardiola was another name that was swirling around, but again, there's no way he comes and coaches the U.S. I mean, I don't even know if the U.S. makes enough money to throw at him to come coach the U.S. I don't even know if that's how that works with coaching contracts. But nonetheless, I think you're right in the sense that neither of those two guys are going to come, despite how amazing and how big of a resume that they have. I would like to see a foreign head coach the U.S. only because I think it would show that the U.S. is really starting to, evolve, and it really could help the U.S. take that next step into being a world power in terms of soccer teams, which I really hope happens one day. Maybe it won't, but we'll just have to wait and see. But American coach would not be the worst thing in the world, like you said. The Union Philadelphia Union coach Jim Curtin, I think his name is. I think that's how you say it. He right, unless I'm
Yeah,
being
100%.
misspoken. Okay. Yeah, he like you said, he won Coach of the Year. He had a fantastic year. He actually Philadelphia Union was ranked in the top 100 clubs in the world earlier this year when they were in their run on the MLS and how well they were playing. So I mean, that's an impressive feat. You usually don't see an MLS team in that ranking as there's so many good European clubs, but he really had the Philadelphia Union playing very well. So we could see him in there. I guess we'll have to wait and see as there's no real candidate, no clear candidate yet. All of these are again just rumors speculating, but I wouldn't mind if it was not American. So I'm just going to end on that. But nonetheless, let's move on to the World Cup and the rest of the tournament aside from America. Even though, as much as we'd like to think the soccer world revolves around America, unfortunately, it does not. So after America lost to the Netherlands played Argentina and took them all the way to penalties, but Argentina ended up winning that game. That one was an exciting one, and then continuing in the the quarterfinals, excuse me, Brazil with that heartbreaking loss to Croatia. I remember watching that game and just feeling for all of those Brazilian players as they went to penalties. They played good the entire game. It was 1-1, and then they could not convert from the penalty spot, and they
Like
ended up losing to Croatia.
in extra time in that game, like
Yeah.
it was the tie going into extra time, and Neymar scored that goal, that beautiful goal, and I was like, oh my God, there wasn't even there was 4 minutes left maybe on the clock. It was
Yeah, not
the
much
game was
time.
over. It should have been over. Brazil should have went through. I was excited. I was happy for Neymar because usually, he went through another World Cup injury that put him out for a few games, which he always seems to be unlucky with every single World Cup. So to see him like come back after that injury, score that goal, really, was going to push his team through, and then they concede at the last minute to Croatia, and Croatia goes on to win that game. It's pretty heartbreaking. I was supporting Croatia personally through that game because of Mateo Kovacic, the Chelsea player. I mean, I know Thiago Silva's on Brazil, but I just don't like a lot of the Brazilian national team as it is. But seeing Croatia go through was like I was happy, but I was also like a little sad for Neymar and Thiago Silva, seeing them like never really being able to fulfill their dreams with such a good national team. And we don't know what's going to happen to Brazil going into the future because a lot of those guys, like I don't think Thiago Silva could ever play in another World Cup. Already he's already as old as he is, and he's still world class right now, but I don't think I could see him playing in the next World Cup.
Yeah, I mean, he's going to be over the age of 40, and a few other players on Brazil are also getting up there in age. I mean, even Neymar, who's younger than the players you'd mentioned, but he will be up there in age 4 years from now. Now, Brazil does have a bit of young talent as well, like Richarlison and players of that nature. But you're right. I mean, the window could have passed for Brazil. We don't know how they're going to turn out in the next four. So you're very right. That could be a spot-on analysis from you.
Just like
And
Belgium,
then the
this
other,
was their last year.
Yes. No,
Belgium.
definitely like Belgium. I mean, KDB even said like we're too old to win, which I don't think you should ever say when you're in a major tournament and you have a really good team and a chance to win. I don't know why he said that, but nonetheless, you're right. Belgium's window certainly passed. They had their chance. They were unable to capitalize, and now they're going to have to figure out who they are as an identity with all the players that won't be playing in the World Cup anymore, and then go forward from there. But the rest of the quarterfinals, France beat England. That was a tough game for me. I don't really like either team. Sorry to say.
Yeah.
I know a lot of people. I know a few people who are English and were rooting for England, but I was kind of happy that they lost just because I think that they're overrated and they haven't proven themselves with having one of the most talented rosters in the world, and they
Bad
always
manager.
underachieve.
Bad manager.
And right, and Southgate's a bad manager. Morocco versus Portugal. Morocco beat Portugal. The picture, or the video of Ronaldo walking off the field crying was an extremely sad one to see. But I will say, the Morocco run that they had was absolutely amazing. I was rooting for them to go so far. I wanted them to beat France in the semifinals. That was a crazy run. Achraf Hakimi, who's now a PSG player, former Dortmund player. So I was happy that he got some success, even though he left us. That's kind of sad. But he was able to do well. They play so fast. I was really liking their style of play. So
Yeah.
what did you see from Morocco? You want to talk about them earlier? I'll give you the floor
I mean,
now.
Morocco was just a team that seemed like they wanted to go out there and have fun. It really looked like they were very free flowing. Their passing movement was very good. They were very snappy. They were very quick. Their ball skills were amazing to see in that game. And like seeing someone like Hakim Ziyech like really be given his own team like that on the offensive end of the field. So when he's clearly like happy and he's comfortable, and when he's like in his team, a team that wants to play around him a little bit more, you can really tell how different he plays than like when he plays with Chelsea, where he has to just kind of like fall in line because he's one of the best players on our team, and you could just see the difference in level with him. So seeing him succeed, I don't like him too much on Chelsea. I'm sure he could do great other places, but on Chelsea, I don't think he fits well with us, and his identity doesn't fit with like what Chelsea stands for really. So seeing him have some national team success, it was good to see, and it was awesome to see that they were the first African team to make it to a semifinal, which is absolutely legendary compared to the fact that we've had like so many good players come from Africa and so many good African teams in the past. Like this year's Senegal team was really really good. Now they didn't make it to the semifinals, but still like it's great to see that there's some more competition coming into these events. So like Africa isn't just a continent everyone's just going to walk over anymore. And same with the United States, where like North America and Canada and the United States are just teams you're just not going to walk all over anymore. And that's great to see.
And that Senegal team did not have Sadio Mane. They still performed really well in the World Cup. Had they have had Mane, they would have went even further. But like I was saying about Morocco, I was rooting for them very heavily against France. Unfortunately, in the semis, they ended up losing 2-0 to France. And I think that France is just a much better team on paper than Morocco, and it finally caught up to Morocco, and France just outplayed them in that game. And then Argentina on the top side of the bracket versus Croatia. Argentina handled Croatia fairly easily, winning 3-0 in that game. And then it set up an Argentina versus France final. I mean, this was storybook. I mean, you can argue that this was scripted because of how perfect it worked out. Argentina, Lionel Messi, one of the greatest players, if not the greatest player in my opinion, the greatest player of all time. The past of football versus Kylian Mbappe, a great young talent, the present of football. He's absolutely balling out. And these two absolute powerhouse teams come to play each other in a final that is an instant classic. I mean, I had people who didn't like soccer coming up to me and telling me, "Oh, maybe I shouldn't have talked so much smack about it because that final was awesome." And I said, "See, I told you. Like, soccer's fun. Like, just watch it more."
Yeah,
But
that
the
game,
final was
insane,
the final
insane.
was great. Let me get your thoughts.
I mean, the fact that first off, you're right. You have the the most people will argue the GOAT of soccer going up against someone who's coming for that title, someone who wants to be the GOAT. Someone, it's the future. He's the future, he's the present, he's the now. Messi is the past because he's getting older and still world class though. And seeing that final and just seeing a 3-3 game going into penalties and ending in penalties, what more could you ask for from a game like from a World Cup final? 3-3 going into penalties. Argentina, Messi finally fulfilling his dream, finally winning everything that he can possibly win, just really making himself the best player to ever play the game in that moment. And you could just see how happy he was, especially since this Argentina team isn't very good on paper. They were not very good on paper, but they were able to rally around a common cause and they rallied around Messi. They wanted him. Everyone was playing for him on that team. They weren't playing for Argentina. They were playing for Messi. Messi is that was the heart and soul of that team, and he was the reason they won just because of the fact that those players played way overachieved so much and played to a level that was not expected of them for him, for Messi. So that was awesome to see. I was sad for one reason and one reason only. I wanted Olivier Giroud to win a World Cup because Olivier Giroud is the most underrated striker to ever play the sport. The fact that that guy has done everything you could possibly ask for and more. He's France's all-time top goal scorer over Thierry Henry. I don't hear his name ever brought up in any conversations about like top 10 strikers of all time and all this, but that's the only reason I was a little sad to see France lose. Other than that, I despise most of that national team. I don't like most of them. And Christopher Nkunku, a future Chelsea man, wasn't even on the net, like had to drop out due to injury. So there was no other reason for me to root for that team. So seeing Argentina win it, seeing Messi win it, it was very fulfilling. It was very heartwarming to see.
Yeah, and Olivier Giroud also, if you look at his highlight reel, that guy has one of the, it's like Zlatan Ibrahimovic. It's one of the best highlight reels you could possibly find. And you're
Yeah,
right, no one ever talks about him. It's criminal. It's criminal how underrated he is. Also, another quick point before I get into it, Lionel Messi and Kylian Mbappe play on the same team, right? So they go away and they have to face each other in training and then play together against all the League One teams. So I think that's another part that just like increased the drama of this final. And the little boy from Rosario, I think, cementing his name as the greatest footballer of all time after this World Cup win. I mean, Ronaldo had the Euros, and then Messi had nothing, and then eventually he won the Copa America. But now with the World Cup title under his belt, I think one, he should retire and from international play, and two, it makes him the greatest football player of all time.
yeah, I mean, 100%. And he is getting up there in age. We'll see what he's doing. And I've heard talks of him extending at PSG. I would love to see him go back to Barcelona for like, like a last kind of tour, like a one last time kind of thing, like Drogba did with Chelsea, where he just came back for that 1 year and we ended up winning the Prem that year. So that was like a really big thing, especially since like Didier Drogba was like one of my heroes growing up. I wore the number 11 for a reason because he just inspired me so much when I was growing up and seeing him play. But I think Messi should retire from the national team. I think he should go back to Barcelona, maybe play like a year there and then go to the MLS if he wants to keep playing or retire or do whatever he wants. But I think he has probably cemented himself as the greatest player of all time. He has the accolades, the personal ones and the trophies on the international level now and the club level he's had for a very long time. He has the goals, he has the assist, he has the eye test when you watch him play, it just comes so easy to him. The moves he can
All the
do,
man
the
of the matches that he has.
all the man of the matches, the ridiculous like through 10 people dribbles that he's just gone down and scored. You can't. He checks every box when it comes to the greatest player of all time. Like when it comes to him, when people talk about Michael Jordan, it's the same exact thing with Lionel Messi. Like, oh, he has the rings, oh, the eye test, oh, he has the MVPs. Well, look at Lionel Messi. He checks all those boxes and probably then some.
Yeah, I agree. I feel like if you showed Messi's career to someone and only told them to watch video of Messi and then showed someone only the stats, both of them would say that he's the greatest player of all time. So you're right. Both aspects of his game truly do stack up against the best to ever do it, making Messi the best to ever do it. Yeah, and just another quick point about that before we wrap up. I was like a little bit emotional because like this is the guy who I'd watched throughout all growing up. I mean, he was on all the FIFA covers I used to get when I was a kid before I even really knew soccer that well. And I was always rooting for him. I was always like wanting him to do well, wanting him to get that World Cup that seemed to be so evasive for him for so long. And then he finally won it, and it was just such an emotional time for Argentina. And I saw everyone being happy, and I was like, wow, like he finally did it. Like that's so cool. Great for them. I mean, they all played, like you said, they played up to the level of Messi because they all were not playing for the name on their back, but rather the Argentina as a country and also Messi as their teammate. And real quick, one more thing I want to mention. Emilio Martinez played fantastic throughout the tournament, and he really stepped up in that final game. I know he gave up 3 goals in regulation, but in penalties, he did his thing. He made a few huge saves, and of course, a little bit vulgar, but pretty funny celebration when he got the
Yeah.
goalkeeper of the tournament award.
Yeah, he really did step up, especially since he wasn't very playing very well for Aston Villa before going into like the World Cup. So to see him really step up for the national team, like I said, a lot of these people overachieved from what they're used to. A lot of them played at a much higher level than they do at the club level. So seeing them being able to step up their level of play for Messi was pretty awesome to see. Like someone like Martinez, who really has not been playing well in the Premier League, seeing him step up and really get the job done for Argentina was pretty awesome to see. And his celebration was hilarious. I'll give it to him.
It was
Especially
extremely
since like
funny.
where it is in the world and like all
Yeah.
the controversies behind it. The fact that he did
Yeah.
it is pretty funny.
That is a crap housery, as some football fans would call it. But that will do it for this episode of PTV FC. For Graham Marshman, my name is Louie Pasculli. We will be back next time talking about the Premier League, as now we've had an even longer break from the Prem than we've had from the World Cup. So I'm excited to get into that, but you have to stay tuned to next episode for us to be talking about that. So have a good day, and we'll see you next time.